total psychopath. Such a piece of cancer. Pure trash. Enjoy hell. These are the kind of comments I typically come across online. It doesn't matter if the killing in question was an accident or part of a calculated rampage. According to public opinion, they're all the same. Prime examples as to why the death penalty should exist everywhere. But it isn't that simple, especially if incarceration somehow manages to have a profound impact on the incarcerated. At 17 years old, Johnny Spain executed a robbery gone wrong. He was later convicted of first-degree murder and sent to San Quentin. Similar to Alcatraz, the prison has a reputation for holding some of California's most infamous convicts. There, he met George Jackson, a fellow prisoner and devoted member of the Black Panther Party. In 1970, he published an autobiography entitled Soul Dad Brother: The Prison Letters of George Jackson. The book was widely praised and transformed him into an untouchable icon. Well, almost untouchable. He was killed during an escape attempt for which 6 other convicts were charged, including Johnny. So, without further ado, let's look at the real story behind the San Quentin Six with Johnny Spain. Take me through August 21st, 1971. What happened? Oh, hello.
We have a guest, Soji. Basically, 1971 in San Quentin prison, there was an escape attempt by George Jackson, and this led to he was killed that day along with 5 other people.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
Two other prisoners and 3 guards, and that event, they charged 6 inmates,
Oh, wow.
me among them, with that escape attempt. And that group of people became known as the San Quentin Six, the 6 people charged with the crimes that day. The trial lasted, that whole trial lasted 19 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, that's the actual trial, not the whole case. The case went on from 1971 to 1975.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
And that the trial occurred in that period.
Yeah.
But the actual, the case was in that period, but the actual trial was 19 months.
Right.
It was the longest trial in United States history at the time.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That I was then convicted of joining a conspiracy. And under California law, that means it's called vicarious liability. If you're convicted of conspiracy, any crimes that are committed in that conspiracy, whether you did them or not, you are convicted of held liable for that.
It doesn't really matter at that point.
So I was convicted of that, and it would be 14 years later before those convictions would finally be overturned, and the state would indeed admit that they never had evidence against me.
Yeah. Why did it take so long?
Well, because the criminal justice practice in California relative to prisoners, usually the trials with prisoners involved lasted no more than a week.
Okay. Yeah.
But because my case had become national and international, had national and international focus on it. It kept dragging on, and we fought every step of the way. I defended myself for 3 years.
Oh my God.
That was an experience.
Yeah, I bet.
Also, you got to take into account there were 6 defendants.
Right.
And you had 6, in many instances, different perspectives in taking on the state of California.
Right.
And as it turns out, that was a big reason why it would lasted so long, because everything was appealed and questioned and challenged along the way,
Right.
especially in the first 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just learning law then.
Yeah.
I think I had the quickest law school course ever.
But yeah, you're front and center.
Well, you tend to take a different look at it when you know you're being charged for something that you did not do,
Right.
but you have no power other than the legal mechanisms to deal with it.
Yeah.
And at 21 years old, I didn't know anything about or a lot about the legal mechanisms.
Right.
And they were talking about the gas chamber
Oh my God.
for this. And I'm saying, oh, no, 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 that is not.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
And another reason it took so long is because the state of California, they did not have a case against me, a factual case.
Yeah.
They were charging me essentially because I was a member of the Black Panther Party back then. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what if I had been a member of the Democratic or Republican Party? And wanted somebody in there committed a crime, you just say everybody in the Republican or Democratic Party is guilty?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would not have been able to sustain that kind of onslaught by the state had we not extended this trial by challenging everything. We took everything. We were chained up during the trial.
Right. Yeah. That was actually my next question. I was actually going to ask.
Okay. Well, I'll let you. Okay.
So you were chained up during the trial. I wanted to ask about that and just how you think it affected your mental and physical health.
Well, that was a question before the courts during the entire duration of the trial. How was it impacting us? And, and I would ask, even then I was asking people to, look, I'm not asking you to be a lawyer or a doctor. I'm asking you to be a human being.
Yeah.
And you walk into a courtroom and you see an individual who has 25 to 27 pounds of chains on them.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then you're asked the question, can you disregard these chains?
Yeah.
And the entire jury said they could. But to me, that's absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, you are given a constitutional right to a fair and impartial trial with a fair and impartial jury.
Right.
And you have the presumption of innocence until you're proven guilty. Whereas many countries, when they arrest you, you are guilty and you have to prove you're innocent.
Right.
Well, our Constitution says, no, you are innocent, they have to prove you guilty. And it's pretty hard to say that a person is not perceived as guilty when they're chained, not only 27 pounds of chains, but then chained to and locked to the floor.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
And I made the statement many times back then that we were chained like animals.
When I read that, I'm like, it seemed almost like not really like it was a necessity to do because you guys were like dangerous or something, but it almost seemed like, I don't know, like an image they were portraying of you guys. Like it felt more about image and more about how you're being perceived,
Well, that was exactly the point. We actually had a court hearing in state court to over the chaining issues. And the judge allowed the prison guards who were escorting and providing security for us in the courtroom to testify. He allowed them to testify. And though we cross-examined their main witness, they never allowed us to bring any witnesses.
Yeah.
What is fair and impartial about that? And it was and it goes back again to your other question, why did it go so long? Things like that. We had to appeal that. We had to challenge that. And as it turns out, we never were successful in getting the chains removed, except for the stint when I sued the state and got in the federal court. There were 12 experts psychologists and psychiatrists who testified about the impact of the change.
Right.
And every single one of them, 6 of their experts and 6 of our experts, every one of them said the same thing. You cannot chain a person in that manner for that period of time and it not have psychological and physical effects, psychological effects. The medical doctors said, I mean, I was anywhere from 188 to 190 pounds playing sports all the time.
Yeah.
And I went down to 138 pounds, over a period.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Where the federal judge even ordered me to go into San Francisco, out of the prison and into San Francisco General Hospital to run tests.
Oh my.
And well, they wanted to figure out why was I losing so much weight? I was eating.
Right.
But they didn't figure that out. And as it turns out, I mean, Cassie, this is the amazing thing.
Right.
We were looking at some x-rays. All these doctors, there were about 8 doctors in the room, and they got one of the interns slapping the x-rays on the light meter. And they slapped one x-ray up there, and everyone in the room, I mean, I saw their x-ray too. I didn't know what I was looking at, though. But every one of those doctors, there was this silence. They all saw immediately something in the x-ray.
Right.
And the guy said, let me see the file on that x-ray.
The
prison file said the x-ray was negative. Nothing's wrong.
Oh, God.
And it's like people who they've seen one x-ray and every single one of them. And Dr. Diamond, he was Stanford University psychologist and medical doctor. He wrote the prison and the judge and said, in his opinion, for this type of what we see in this x-ray, it is so glaring and clear. And then to read the report and say that it was negative. He said, either this is the most pronounced manner of incompetence he had ever seen in his life relative to anything.
Yeah.
I mean, not just incompetence in this, anything, or it was a deliberate attempt to threaten my life in a way that was, under the table, like, we know this is really screwed up, but we're not going to say anything about it.
I mean, looking back now, do you think that they had something against you guys because of that? It was so personal to them that they may have done things that maybe in other cases they probably wouldn't have.
We were totally at the mercy of the guards,
right?
Whose comrades were the victims in this crime.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I wasn't ever saying that, well, it doesn't matter that these folks got hurt. Yes, it does matter. I mean, people got killed that day.
Yeah.
But because they had made such a show of our prosecution, and what you said earlier, well, what were they really fearful of? They weren't really fearful of us. They were painting this picture of fear.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the same tactic that was used to build so many prisons in California. The crime rate never went up in California, but the media was pumping all of society saying, oh, the crime. We need more prisons. And people were saying, oh, I want to be safe, build more prisons.
Right.
It had nothing to do with the actuality of the crime rate never went up down more than 1% during that whole period of prison construction.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, the state of California, in my case, certainly, they had a vested interest in making me look like the worst. Well, let me not make up terms here. I'll just quote them. After I got out of prison, the federal court, years later, and the state of California was trying to get me back in prison. We went to court, and the Attorney General of California said, Johnny Spain is the most dangerous prisoner in the state of California. That's what, and I'm sitting in the audience behind where my attorneys are representing me. And I kind of chuckled, and the federal judge saw that. He knew I was in the courtroom, and he says, "Mr. Spain, do you find something humorous here?" I said, "Well, Your Honor," I said, "actually, I do." And I said, "I'd like to share it with you if you would." He said, "Sure." So I gave him a document, and that document was the official tool list. I was an emergency electrician inside. It was my official tool list, tools that I was authorized to carry around. And I was an emergency electrician to actually keep in my cell.
Right. Yeah.
And it had 36 or so, 32, 36 tools on there, including drills, hammers, hacksaws, screwdrivers. It's like,
Yeah.
and I gave this to the judge, and I said, "Your Honor," I said, I find it ironically humorous that this man, the Attorney General, would say, "I'm the most dangerous person in the state of California," and show you the list of tools that they give the most dangerous man in California.
Then they're incompetent for doing that. That's what they believe.
and the judge, he looked at the list and he really studied it. He says, "Oh my God." Anyways.
How do you view George Jackson, his actions now, especially in light of the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, basically violence concerning like police officers,
Well, I think the police officers have a very difficult road to hoe, because people think of, well, police officers, and I don't. I think there are people who are police officers, and in that order.
Yeah.
I know that there are people who are in jobs of corrections and policing that are really good people.
Right.
But the secrecy of those jobs historically have allowed people and the fraternity of embracement that they do with each other, which is in many instances allowing criminal behavior and activity, overlooking it or excusing it. Now, I'm not attributing that to every single guard and every single police officer, but I am saying it does exist, and there is this institution of it to the point where there's just no way you can justify it, as many say the police killings that we filmed and have on tape.
Yeah.
And just as a visual that other people can go back and say, "Oh, I don't believe Johnny." Well, go look at the Rodney King media, research the Rodney King, all of the video stuff that was done on the news then. After the Rodney King verdict, what 3 of the jurors were in an interview and justifying their verdict of innocent.
Right.
And one woman talked for 32 seconds of their justification of their verdict. And behind her, this was on CNN, they happened to be playing the part where they were beating Rodney King. He was unconscious.
Oh my gosh.
For at least 22 seconds, not moving at all. They never stopped beating him while she was saying, "We saw no evidence that there was unjustified overdue force." Really? Like,
geez, wow.
Anytime a person people can do that, and I'm not condemning the juror. She's part of this ebb and flow of being conditioned by the media of what to think, and don't think for yourself. We don't have true journalism anymore.
No, it's just kind of the next big story.
The next big story, no matter. In a case in point, some years ago, a 9-year-old boy was playing with his father's gun, accidentally shot an 18-month-old.
Oh my God.
And they died. And one of the news stories was, after this, as this went on for days and days, one of the news stories was, "Let's talk to the grandmother of this child." Seriously?
Yeah.
I need to talk to the grandmother of this child to know how she feels right now. I don't. I mean, and I'm not belittling the grandmother of how she feels. I'm saying I already know how she feels.
Yeah.
Why is that an important issue for the news? I understand how she feels, but why is it an important issue? They were talking about, well, let's talk about the death penalty for this 9-year-old. And that became, for 5 days, became the issue. And it's like, seriously, this kid, let's kill this 9-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Who I'm sure went out and bought the gun, got the license. Oh no, he didn't, did he? But we want to kill this kid rather than look at some of the issues around guns in our society.
It's almost like they've become like YouTube or like talk shows where it's just like they all have to have like exclusives on different, like, let's look from this angle, let's look from that angle, but they're not actually looking at the case, it feels like.
No, at the case itself, because the sheer facts about the case is, number one, the kid didn't go get the gun from the store.
Yeah.
The gun was made available to the kid. The kid wasn't trying to shoot and kill this toddler.
Yeah.
That wasn't the point. I mean, if that had been the issue, you might have an argument for some of these other things, but it wasn't. And we know this. So why are you riling up people's emotions, like getting what the grandmother felt? That's just creating bias right there.
Well, and a big case, I think that, or at least from what I know, like probably the first or biggest case that did that was probably OJ, right? I mean, that was like they had to show every single person involved and
every single person,
everything, and it completely like distorted what had actually happened.
Right, and that's the other thing. Courtrooms in the modern day have ceased to be an institution in an environment where justice is meted out.
Yeah,
it's rather become an institution where whoever can put on the best production of a show win.
Yeah.
And I've had to fight that tooth and nail. And the only real weapon that I had was, I knew that I was not guilty of this stuff. I knew that. I didn't need anyone's sympathy or help. I just needed some help in terms of, sympathy or help around the issue of guilt or innocence. I needed help in terms of getting this machine off of me from the state.
Yeah.
And was able to finally do that, but not without great cost. To myself, to my family, to friends, and I think generally to society.
Right.
I was the worst case imaginable, that they should have never taken me to court on any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because they just came out of it with a really big black eye.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Johnny. It was a very interesting conversation.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of what you're doing, because I think you're doing great stuff.
Oh, good.
I don't think you are doing great stuff.
Yeah.
I hope more people will become aware of what you're doing and listen, because you have a uniquely informed and important view in life. And
oh, good.
I love that about you.
Yeah, good.
And I hope only the best for you. Thank you too.
Man, what a captivating tale full of intense highs and soul-crushing lows. Also, if you have any ideas for any upcoming videos related to true crime, let me know in the comment section below. Please like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified about any other videos I do. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys!